Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Carolyn Life. I'm Carolyn. This is my life, and today I'm going to talk to my friend Kelly, who's a medical data scientist, about her career aspirations and her career goals as a disabled adult in the regular working world. Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Okay, so why don't we start with just explaining a little bit more about who you are?
Okay. My name is Kelly. I have a disability called Brook syndrome, which makes my bones more breakable. And my neck is really soft, so I have issues with my spine, and that's why I'm in a wheelchair. I have kind of a medical science background and a data and math background. So I'm looking to work as a medical data scientist, or what they would call a biostatistician. And what they do is, for medical research, they do the data analysis. So I would basically be they do the data analysis to make sure, treatments work, make sure that, there aren't bad side effects and things like that. And basically what I would do is the math component of that the scientists and doctors leading the studies don't want to do. So that is the ultimate goal. Right, so I'm looking for a job in that area. Right now, I'm working as a math and science tutor for college students.
Okay, have you been successful in finding any jobs as a tutor?
Yeah, I tutored while I was in college. I tutored other students while I was in college for a couple of years, and then I worked. So the company I work for now, it's an online company. It's all done online, and so it's national. So I'm tutoring college students like in other states and stuff like that. And basically, I just put up my schedule, and they can schedule with me um, to do some tutoring, or there's a little online switch where um, I can switch it on and say, hey, I'm available now if you have any questions. And I worked for them for a couple of years before I went back to grad school in 2017. And then I recently started working for them again. It's a nice part-time job with a lot of flexibility.
How did you find that particular company?
I mean, I like them. They're usually pretty quick to answer my questions if I have an issue or things like that. They've they've gotten more strict this like recently, like to be hired you have to like get tested now, which I didn't a few years ago. And they give me feedback now, which is nice, so I can improve. But I enjoy working for them, and I like And like I said, I like the flexibility so that I can, search for jobs while I work for them. And I've also been going through some medical stuff recently, so I can plan around that, which is nice.
Has it changed at all with what's going on in the world? Like, have you seen taking more students?
It's hard to tell because I started back in October. So, although I actually tried to get hired by them back in August, and they said they didn't have the demand for the subjects I would tutor. So I think there must have been sort of a gap in there must have been a kind of maybe a gap in schooling at that point. But then they hired me back in October, and it was pretty busy when I first started, and then it died down a little over the holidays, and now it's starting to pick up again.
What's your favorite subject to tutor?
I don't know. My most popular is statistics. And I think for me, that's the most straightforward. Because it's what I've studied most recently, and I can look up stuff pretty quickly if I need to. The most fun to tutor is probably psychology. Because then we have more like interesting conversations about stuff. One student came to me with a question that was like, if we found, a gene that caused psychopathy, so people to be sort of crazy, and let me explain. So in psychology, a psychopath is someone who the part of their brain that controls empathy, like feeling for other people, and the one that controls impulses that like helps you make decisions, those don't work properly. And so you get people who make impulsive decisions without regard for other people because they don't know how to feel for other people. And, at best, these people become like very ruthless, like competitive. There was a study recently that showed that a lot of CEOs are psychopaths because they don't mind who they step on to get ahead, basically. That's probably the majority of them. And then at worst, they can become like a serial killer. So it's like, so this girl got this question that was like, if we found a gene that causes this, what should we do with that knowledge? What should we, and that was a very interesting topic of conversation that I could just, she came to me with I think English was not her first language, and I think she just needed clarification, or she just needed someone to explain more clearly how, like what the question was asking. Because eventually she was like, oh, this is like my opinion. I'm like, yeah, like they're asking, what do you think would be the right thing to do? But there are a lot of interesting topics that, like sort of ethical issues that come up with that. questions. That was cool.
So do you enjoy working with like the person-to-person aspect of your job right now?
Yeah, I do. It's cool to meet people in other states and things like that. Yeah. Trying to think there's anything else. Yeah, I think that's kind of cool.
So it sounds like it's a good, interesting beginning job. Can you tell me more about like what prompted you to get involved in your field of study?
So I originally studied psychology when I was in college. And then I actually got into a biomedical sciences PhD program. And I did that for a year. But the program was too microbiology, like cell biology based, and that was not my interest. And I'm more about like how the whole brain works and stuff like that, and not so much on the cellular level. And so I transferred to a neuroscience master's program and finished that. And the original plan was to get a PhD in psychology. That did not quite work out. And I eventually decided that, I like statistics and I'm good at it. I've been tutoring in it for years, and it's definitely a higher demand in the medical research field, and that's what I want to do is work in medical research, in particular, more at the later stages where you're testing, things on humans. I have some background in the earlier stages from my neuroscience days, where you're working with animals and stuff. But I like seeing more of a direct impact of research on patients. And you're only really going to see that if you go into more what they call clinical research, which is more directly on patients rather than what they call benchwork research, which is like in the lab with animals or cells or early stages of research. And so because of this, I went back to get my biostatistics master's. And I graduated with that December 2019. And was looking for a job and everything, and then COVID hit. So it's been a little difficult with the whole COVID thing, but I've been getting a lot of interviews though, so I'm optimistic that I will eventually get into that field. I will get into that field.
Is there anything specifically related to your field of interest that you have to be mindful of your disability when interviewing? Like, did you have to?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's specific to my field, but if it's a job where I have to go in person, I have to let them know, like, hey, I need to know with transportation. Sometimes in research you have to go present at conferences and stuff like that, and I have done that. But I have to kind of let them know that, like, hey, I need like warning. Like I need to know, like if we're going to travel, I need to know about it a lot of time beforehand so that I can make the travel arrangements and hire a personal care aide to come with me and things like that. So I have to let them know that. And then also for like writing reports and stuff, I do mention that I use a voice recognition software, which is a software that lets me like speak into a microphone and type. And so I bring that up because sometimes I'm not sure if I'm going to be writing about stuff that's confidential, and I'm speaking it out loud. And so I bring that up in interviews just to make sure they can accommodate that. And I found it's good that if they know in advance that you're disabled, they're more prepared for it or more, yeah.
It's less of a jarring transition for the employer.
Yeah.
Yeah. What started your interest in statistics and all that?
Well, I took my first statistics class my senior year of high school. I actually took it instead of calculus. And it was partially my dad's urging because he freaked out when I got like 1C in pre-calculus on my report card, because yeah, I'm good at math, but like trig makes it a bit more difficult. I don't like working with angles. And my teacher was not that great, my pre-cal teacher. So he sort of freaked out at that, and then he sort of said to me, like, hey, maybe you should do statistics instead of calculus because, for one thing, it's actually far more practical than calculus is. Like, unless you're going to be an engineer, you don't really need calculus. And so I took stats. I was good at it. And then for my psychology degree, I had to take more of it. I also had to take one calculus course to get into grad school. So I did do that briefly, and I made a B. I did fine.
Well, that's good.
I don't know if I remember any of it at this point, but I did fine at it. So yeah, that's really what got me started.
Well, that's interesting. And then, is there anything that you would do differently now as far as your career path to your degree? Like looking back on all of your experience and stuff?
I mean, I maybe would have shifted gears sooner. I had a few years between my neuroscience degree and my stats degree where I was having a lot of trouble finding work and getting into grad school, and so that puts a little bit of a gap on my resume. I did present at a couple of international conferences during that time, but other than that, I didn't do much. So I would maybe after like maybe the second time of not getting into grad school, maybe I would have shifted gears sooner. Moved to Denver sooner, and yeah.
I think we all go through that as people trying
Yeah.
especially as a disabled adult myself, trying to enter the working world, trying to figure out, first of all, what am I interested in, and then
Yeah.
where is my interest and ability in relation to my capability level of doing
Yeah.
that thing. Like, because it's all well and good to have a degree in something, but not to be able to do the physical part of the job has always been
Yeah.
very frustrating to me.
Yeah. I mean, that is part of the reason I'm transitioning more towards working with human patient, well, and working in statistics, because statistics is mostly, computer work. Sorry. Whereas back when I was working with animals and stuff, they were very hesitant to let me handle the animals, and whereas with human patients, you're not supposed to physically handle human patients. Actually, they frown upon that. So
Right.
so that's part of the reason I switched to statistics and I'm looking more into that type of research, because I think it's easier for people to be like, oh, you can work at a computer, that's
Right.
fine. And I do sometimes think about what I would have done if I were not disabled. Like, because I considered medical school, but you have to like try out like emergency medicine and things like that, or at least in the US you do, which physically is very difficult. And or like, so sometimes I wonder, if I weren't disabled, would I have like become a veterinarian?
I
And
often thought the same thing as far as like my career path. Like, not
yeah,
saying that the disability controls, but like you do kind of have to think about that
it
more
does
often.
influence
As,
what you end up
yeah.
doing. Yeah. Yeah, because I thought about veterinary school and medical school. Um, and I think physically those would have been very difficult to do. Although I do know of disabled people who went to medical school. There was the woman from the Little Couple, who's a
Yeah,
neonatologist doctor that works
she's
with
a
babies.
neonatologist.
Yeah.
That was the only example that I could think of right off the top of my head. But
There was another one. There was one woman who went to, I think it was UCLA medical school, and she had like one working arm and not like all of her fingers, but she worked as like a general doctor, like a family doctor, and she figured out how she could give injections and things like that. Although I think the nurses do more of that anyway, but that was the other example somebody gave me when I was in college. But I also talked to the head of the medical school, and then I talked to a couple of medical students, and they were, trying out emergency medicine would be difficult. And they also mentioned that like with medical school, it's like you have no free time, like absolutely no free time. And it's like your social life is you studying with your friends slash classmates. And I like having some downtime. Like, I think that was part of the reason I went to research because with like master's and PhD programs, I mean, yeah, they like for you to finish in a certain amount of time, but like it's not like every single semester is completely filled up with stuff and you know, and you have no free time or whatever. It's you can make free time if you need to. And I mean, for example, I was able to kind of push back my graduation one semester because of how many classes I had left and how stressful it would have been to try and do all of them in one semester. So whereas they're not nearly as flexible in medical school. So that was also part of my decision, which doesn't necessarily have to do with my disability. It's more personality thing. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not one of those people that wants to be constantly busy every day. So
Can you tell us a little bit, just a little bit about your undergrad and how you found that experience for anybody looking to go into college, maybe to study science fields or anything?
it. I went to Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio, which is, I mean, it was built in like the 60s with disabled people in mind. So they have like all of their buildings are accessible. They have accessible housing, and they hire other students to work as personal care aides for disabled students, which worked very well for me. It depends on how much help you need. If you need like a lot of nursing type help, they don't provide that. But if you need just like help, you know, getting dressed or taking a shower and things like that, they provide that. And so that actually gave me a lot of freedom. And I started off as a mass communications major because I thought I wanted to work in television. I actually did that all through high school. And then I realized that it was more of a hobby for me and that, you know, in order to work in that field, it's a very difficult field to get into, and you have to start from the bottom and like, you know, give people coffee and things like that. And I was like, I'm not sure I like this enough to do that. Wright State also didn't really specialize in that. Like my high school media program was actually better than the one Wright State provided. And so I switched to psychology because I had an interest in human behavior and an interest in that area, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. At first, I was not going to become a therapist because when people start crying, I become very uncomfortable. So that's not a good.
That's not a good trait to have as a therapist.
As a therapist. yeah, no, you become horribly awkward when people start crying. It's like, no. But I found out that, so well, let's see, I took like biology of diseases, I think, and that's why I added the pre-med stuff, and then I found out that that for the psychology degree, they offer a behavioral neuroscience concentration. So I did that, and that's when I thought, oh, I can go into research. I can research psychiatric disorders and things like that.
So
And
you were able to just still pursue your interest, but just in a different way.
yeah, yeah.
What things as a prospective student looking forward to college would you say influenced your decision when choosing your degree, and how did that process change as you went through the system of going to college, as you will?
Well, I will admit that choosing a college, I at first went by, okay, what I thought I wanted to do and things like that, like the types of programs they had. But I actually ended up choosing Wright State over George Washington University, which had a better media program, because of the disability, the accessibility of Wright State, because I just felt more comfortable there. And I actually at first was not even going to look at it. My grandparents wanted me to, and I kind of did it to humor them at first, and then realized like, oh, I actually like feel comfortable here, and also they have these services that most other colleges don't offer. I think there are like 2 or 3 other colleges in the US that do. I think Berkeley is one of them, University of Houston. I think there's one in Pennsylvania somewhere. And then when choosing a major, like again, I started out in mass communications, and I took like 2 speech classes and was like, no. And so I switched to psychology.
Was that your forte?
Well, I had a tendency to ramble, but also I just kind of realized I was like, I don't want to do like 2 years of like speech classes to get to where I can like work in television. I kind of realized that I was not as passionate about working in television as I ought to be in order to go through all that. So switched to psychology. Then I added the pre-med stuff like a year or 2 later, when I decided like, oh, I like medicine. And then and then when I found the behavioral neuroscience concentration, that kind of clicked because it's both psychology and biology, which is kind of cool. And I found that process, that process was okay. I did freak out a little bit when I was like, oh, I don't want to be a therapist. But I think that's why I added the pre-med stuff, because I didn't want to change my major again. And well, it's like, well, if you add pre-med, then you can like think about going to medical school or veterinary school or grad school or whatever. And um and uh and so I very much liked my major. Wright State, their psychology degree is actually far more scientifically rigorous um, than other psychology programs. So it's actually really great if you want to work in research. They make you do a whole research methods series and have you take statistics, and you have to do capstone classes where where you read scientific articles and criticize them. And I actually found when I was in the biomedical program, the biomedical PhD program, I actually found I had more experience in that than the like biochemistry majors who
Oh,
were
that's
in the
interesting.
program. Yeah, I had like far more experience in that than they did. And I was like you should have experience in this. Like it's just as important for you to know how to, you know, look at an experiment and criticize it and whatever. Like, um, but I actually really like Wright State program. Now, if you want to be like some sort of therapist or something like that, maybe their program is not for you. Because they also make you take, or at least they did back then, Java, like computer programming, which for the people who are like doing the Bachelor of Arts instead of the Bachelor of Science, I was like, why do they have to take it? Like they want to be like marriage counselors. Like they don't need to learn how to program a computer. But anyway, um, but if you're interested in more of the scientific area of psychology, it is a really great program. I actually thought it was really good.
Did you find your professors in college were very forward thinking as far as the employment track for the
Um,
students, or?
it depended. I had some who were really great mentors, who helped me, look at graduate programs and, um, gave suggestions as to um, what I would like. I still, even at Wright State, I still ran into professors that were hesitant to let me do things hands-on. You know what I mean? So like I still ran into a little bit of that when it came to like I took a class where we did like brain surgery on rats and then had them run through mazes and stuff. And my job was basically like observe them and make sure they're breathing okay. Which actually did come in handy. One of them started like choking, and it turned out that they had put them in the I forget what it's called, but there's a thingy that keeps their head in place while they're and they had put that in wrong and they were like choking. But
Oh dear, poor
yeah, I
animal.
mean, thankfully, yeah, no, thankfully, Professor did CPR. They were okay. Um, but I think that's also part of the reason I'm transitioning to working with humans is even though I sort of view it as a sort of necessary evil, um, seeing animals go through things now can be a bit difficult, or having to euthanize them can be difficult. And I, even though I know that, like, for example, the scientific community is actually better at treating the animals than the food industry. But I think it was one of the other reasons that I was like, let's try working with humans. Because you don't have to do as invasive of stuff with them. And so, but yeah, I had some good, I had some good experiences and then other experiences where I didn't quite have the mentoring that I wanted, but
I
I don't know.
think
I think
that's a common thing with
goes through that.
colleges and in the mix of professors you get, you know.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the near future that you think is changing in your viewpoint as far as a disabled person trying to get a job? Do you think it's becoming easier with the
Um,
things to
it's
get a job as a working adult?
I don't know. I don't know if it's getting easier. I mean, I've been looking for a job for about a year now and still having some trouble, but I mean, there was the whole COVID pandemic and that, people's research got postponed because of that. So that's part of it. Um, I've been getting more interviews, which makes me a bit more optimistic. That being said, I sometimes wonder if there is still some, when I get interviewed, if there is still some like ableism there. But
I myself have experienced
yeah,
quite a bit of that going in for interviews.
yeah, I've had ones where they did tell me, the reason we didn't hire you is because, this person had similar experience and they spoke Spanish or whatever. So I've had ones where, or they specifically had experience in like HIV research or whatever. And so I've had ones where they told me like there was another candidate that had more experience in this area and that's why we went with them. So I think those people seriously considered me. It's hard to tell sometimes it's when you get the typical like we decide to go another way, message. It's hard to tell like, well, what was that decision based on?
What type of interviews do you typically go through for your jobs?
Most of them
I've
have
had
been
quite a few panel interviews myself.
I've had some of those. I've had ones where, like 4 people were interviewing me at once. Because of COVID, they've almost all been video or phone interviews, which has actually been far more convenient for me. That's kind of one upside for me. But yeah, that's mostly, I've had some where it's just 1 or 2 people, and then some where it's like 4 or 5 people. A lot of times you get interviewed by, in the first round, maybe you get interviewed by an HR person. human resources person and like a research assistant. And then maybe in the second interview, you get interviewed by, the scientists running the whole research project, or by the statistical team, by the data analysis team. So it's been sort of a mixture of different types of people that I've been interviewed by.
But it sounds like you've had quite a positive experience as far as all that goes, like getting interviewed,
Yeah,
and those kind of things.
for the most part, it's definitely been a more positive experience than it has been in the past. After my neuroscience degree, I was sort of applying to jobs and just never hearing back, basically, and not even really getting interviews. And so at least now, like, I'm getting interviews, and so that makes me a bit more optimistic.
Yes, that does help boost the confidence, as they say, when you're actually getting interviews. Because it can feel a little bit daunting to me when I put my resume in and then you don't even get like
Yeah.
or whatever. All right. Well, thank you for interviewing with me. Is there anything that you'd like to say as far as a final thought, as far as like your degree or what you hope for in the future with your degree?
I hope that at least in the next year or so, I get a sort of entry-level job in the type of research I want to do. And then I hope to work my way up to a biostatistician position, where I would be doing the data analysis for, multiple projects and things like that. I think that would be really cool. I'm not worried about it yet. With the whole COVID thing going on, and I realized everything got kind of delayed, and I'm going through some medical issues right now. So having this part-time job for right now, bless you, having this part-time job for right now is working really well for me. Yeah, I hope to get a position like that pretty soon. Hi, this is Molly.
With the last few minutes of the interview, I was gonna take some questions from the comments.
Okay.
Always Fun Yoga asks, do you work from home?
Yes, I work with the tutoring. I work from home. It's completely online based. They have a kind of like a virtual classroom where you can write on whiteboards and upload documents and things like that. And yeah, basically how it works is I put up times for the week that I'm available. They can sign up, or I can go on the website and just turn on the switch and take immediate clients. And yeah, and it works really well because I basically make my own hours and I work from home, so it's very convenient.
How often would you say you're doing that?
I try to do a few hours a day. I tend to put my hours up in the afternoon, so that I know I'll be up and ready by then, and in case my personal care aide is running late or something. But then I like to have evenings to myself, so I tend to put up those hours like 5 days a week. Although if I have like a doctor's appointment or a piano lesson or an interview, a job interview, I sometimes take down those hours. And so I don't work a whole lot of hours. I mean, probably at most it's like 10 hours a week if I'm really busy. But it depends on the time of year with how much how much time students need and things like that.
Always Fun Yoga also asks, do you like to wear dress clothes to make it feel like you're at work?
No. I mean, I should probably. I do for interviews. For interviews, I dress up. For work, I wear just like normal shirts and pants. I do wear pants. I keep seeing like commercials of people like not wearing pants during like virtual work meetings. And I'm like, why? Like, if there's a chance they might see you below the belt, why would you not wear pants? Like, I realize they're probably not going to see you below there, but like, I would at least wear pants. And I sometimes don't wear shoes. That's like as far as I go. Because I've been having issues with my foot recently, so I haven't worn shoes in a long time.
Always Fun Yoga asks, are you able to wear heels?
I can. Little like kitten heels, probably. I don't walk or stand, so I don't walk a whole lot and I don't stand a whole lot. So and so I do find that I can stand a little bit in little kitten heels. But I don't wear heels a whole lot. I tend to prefer like boots as my like nice shoes.
Is that another aspect of working as an adult professional that you find difficult to find appropriate professional clothing when you're like speaking at conferences and things?
Sometimes, but I managed to find a couple of professional jackets when I was I think when I was in grad school originally. So when I was like 24, 25, I managed to find a couple of professional jackets that I like to wear. And shoes were an issue until I stopped wearing a leg brace. It was hard to find like nice shoes for people wearing leg braces, but now that I don't anymore. Well, finding shoes is still kind of difficult because sometimes they're uncomfortable, and so I have gotten some customized shoes which work better, and they now look better than they used to. originally they used to be really ugly and stuff, and now at least they look like, you know, decent boots or sneakers. So that's improved.
I myself find it difficult to find shoes that both work with my feet and look professional. Like I find lots of tennis shoes, but to me there's not a wide variety of just a regular women's shoe. It doesn't have to be like a heel per se, but like a regular working women's like shoe. So that's been a struggle for me, but I'm able to find a couple pairs of, like you say, the dress boots.
Yeah.
I find that those for myself work much better than like trying to find the little slip-on shoes, because they don't tend to make those very easy for me to wear slip-on flats. But if there's any more questions, I think we have time for just one more, and then I'm gonna wrap it up here.
Okay.
Anybody have any more questions they'd like to ask? While we're waiting for questions, I was just gonna tell everybody out there, thank you. And if you're watching the replay, leave me a comment, and I can, if you have further questions for Kelly, I can always email her later.
Yeah.
With your further questions. I'm gonna wrap this up now. Thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My interview subject. I hope you guys enjoyed this series. I'm gonna maybe sprinkle a few more of these in throughout the month. Thank you for watching. I'm Carolyn. This is my life, and remember, you are enough. Have a great day, guys. Bye.